I'm delighted to hear that some of our early black and white films will be finally put into color with this new process of legend films. We would have shot them if we had the budget, I think, in color, because color was just coming into fashion at that time. The film She is a very obscure film, I guess, to many people. It came out in 1935, made by Marion Cooper's production, directed by Irving Pitchell and Lansing Holden, and starring Helen Gahagan. It was an unusual film, and unfortunately it didn't do great box office attractions at that time. I don't know what the subject, perhaps it had to do a lot with reincarnation, and perhaps that wasn't popular with the public at that time.
I might imagine that your resemblance to a man dead nearly 500 years is fate's way of showing me that you will find again what he discovered.
But I've seen tests of the colorization of She, and I think it'll give it new life because it's a wonderful story. It haunted me for years when I first saw it, an unusual story. And there's a score by Max Steiner after he did King Kong is really superior. It almost is superior to The Rites of Spring. He does a wonderful primitive ceremonial dance in the Hall of Kings near the end of the film. And I think I have often wondered why some ballet company hasn't pursued that and made it for the stage, because Benjamin Zemeck, who did the dance sequences for the film, was a very unusual Broadway dance director. And he did what they'd call, I suppose at the time, eccentric dances. And if you see She, you'll see this wonderful Egyptian overcast, Mayan Egyptian architecture, along with Aztec, and sort of a mixture. And it makes the whole barbaric sequence of these primitive people of Kor stand out tremendously. His music, sometimes it's often called an opera without an aria, because the music goes all the way through the film, right from the beginning, at the title. And I think it's one of Max Steiner's great scores, very unusual, very underestimated. In the world of classical music, there's a great deal of snobbery about film music, but I think one could easily say that this compares with anything that all the modern, the composers, classic composers of the past did. It's much more fascinating to me than Belshazzar's Feast, which is a classical score. And I found it, as I said before, much more interesting than The Rites of Spring, the way it was staged in the film. So I hope all of those who have neglected to see She in the past will take a new look and see. It has some very wonderful and unusual concepts in it, which I think people will find fascinating in today's audience.
This element cannot be artificially produced.
Only nature, only God can produce it.